Okay. Now, I think that we are in the lingering unipolar moment where the end of history, the hype about the end of history, as if there is only one political system, this moment is about to pass because the unrivaled American hegemony seems to be facing a downturn, at least. There is a premature US-led triumphalism over Russia's Ukraine misadventure at the beginning, but now the war is dragging on and there is no end in sight. And then the war of attrition is affecting all sides. So it's still no end. And so this early triumphalism is subsiding a bit. And then New Delhi, the G20's communique somehow buttressed the hope for, again, a US-led global order. But looking deeper, this may not be the case. As the edifice of American capitalism seems to be crumbled with the society divided, extremely unequal distribution of wealth, and then the political system hijacked by dark money and also big companies. And of course, there is Robert Kennedy wrote this book about even the coronavirus pandemic seemed to have enriched the multi-billionaires at the expense of the ordinary people. So the society becomes even more polarized. But the signs of a declining U.S. hegemony began with the financial crisis, 2008, and then the failed wars in the Middle East, and now more recently, a historic rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and then the BRICS expansion with a lot of countries lining up to join the BRICS. It also signaled that the global South is getting a bit of fed up being pushed around. Not that they would like to fight the United States, but at least they want to have a more powerful coalition to further their own sovereign interest. And then you look at the United States, the country seems to be a little bit broken, to say the least, with rising homelessness, the world's largest prison population, and even the speech is a cancel culture, curtailing free speech. There was a deeply divided country with crumbling infrastructure compared with other countries, and especially China. And then, according to The Economist, the definition of democracy, the United States seems to become a flawed democracy. That's not my word. That's the word of the Economic Intelligence Unit, falling behind many countries because of the fractured political system. And then, of course, the aggressive use of the sanctions have diluted the dollar's dominance. Now, President Biden seemed to be have more success in building American better when Trump utterly regarded this particular area. And then with the CHIPS Act and the infrastructural kind of measures. Now, he's also launched two initiatives, the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework and the regional, but then the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, how does it compare with the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which is the world's largest, third largest trading bloc, accounting for a third of the population, a third of the world GDP, whereas the international Indo-Pacific Economic Framework seems to be a lot of talk. According to the latest article in the New York Times, it seems to be faltering. And then there's another initiative called the Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment. The thing is that it seems to tout something like $600 billion before 2027, but then the money is not there yet. But the most important thing, the difference between the PGII and the China's Belt and Road is that the PGII relies a great deal on private enterprise, and of course the infrastructural projects are not a great number of them are not that commercially attractive, because you're talking about schools, hospitals, and even ports, and sometimes highways are in the very remote parts of those poor countries. So they most of them are not commercially attractive, and that throws the influence of the PGII into question. Now, the Belt and Road, again, not too many people pay attention to the details, is a massive, extensive kind of project which has been in existence for over 10 years. So there are 6 economic corridors linking China to Europe and around the rest of the world. There is a polar extension, the sea passage passing through the north of Russia, when the sea ice is melting because of climate change. And then there is a digital Silk Road with undersea fiber optic cables. So it's a massive project relying on the fact that China is the largest trading partner for 128 countries around the world, compared with only 58 for the United States. According to the latest scoreboard, based on a World Bank report, $1 trillion US dollars have been galvanized through China's Belt and Road, 3,000 corporation projects, and then in creating 420,000 local jobs around the world and lifting 40 million people out of poverty. But of course, there is a great deal of blowback, and also a great deal of blowback, and also the accusations of debt trap. But according to the latest UK-based NGO, Debt Justice, they look around the world and found that most of the developing countries owe more debt to Western commercial lenders than to China. Now, I mentioned the fact that China's strength lies in this centrality, 128 countries as the largest trading partner, and also exemplified by the fact that the world's 7 largest container ports, 10 container ports, 7 are in China. And to the extent that there are more currencies that move in tandem with the renminbi than with the US dollar, according to the research done by the Peterson Institute of Economics. So there is a perceived China threat now, and very popular myths about peak China. And China is perceived to be encroaching on the world order in the sort of governance system, in transparency, in open access. So and then there is the negative views of China are rising all over the world. So China's popularity is plummeted, according to the views research. And there are lots of books coming up on how China should be confronted and how China could lose its legitimacy around the world. And now China is almost at war with the United States, following Graham Allison's Thucydides trap and a host of other books written on it. China's facing 4 traps, the so-called Tacitus trap, when no matter what it does, is viewed negatively. The middle income trap, which everybody understands, the Thucydides trap, and the Kinderberger trap, according to Professor Joseph Nye, and China seems to be ascending when there is a lack of global governance. And then China, of course, have a great deal of internal problems, the kind of imbalance in its economy, and the aging demographics, and the asset bubble, as well as a lot of unemployment for the vast cohort of university graduates. But then President Xi already highlighted, alluded to the era of unprecedented challenges. And herein lies China's basic strength. According to the latest study of Australian Strategic Policy Institute, it's a critical technology tracker. It was published in March 2023. China seems to be, and it's based on the research of 2 million peer-reviewed papers. China seems to be leading in 37 out of 44 critical technologies that define the 4th industrial revolution. for example, in artificial intelligence, materials, manufacturing, energy and environment, and a host of others. And China is well positioned to drive, as I said, to drive the fourth industrial revolution, when the way people live, how businesses conducted are totally changed. And China, of course, is linked together with the world's largest high-speed rail network, 30,000 square kilometers, to double to 75,000 by the year 2035, linking a lot of city clusters on the bottom right-hand side, and with the high-speed rail, and that should drive productivity. And China is now becoming the Detroit for the next generation of electric vehicles. You can see that a lot of electric cars are being made in China and exported around the world. And China, of course, has already become a global e-commerce giant. And as for the demographics, a great deal of China's economic activity have been automated and also driven by robotics, even in agriculture, restaurants, supermarkets, hotels. China recently succeeded in extracting methane hydrate, which is a highly concentrated form of fossil fuel in the South China Sea. If it's completely realized, it would last China's energy needs, or the world's energy needs, for hundreds of years. And China's now become a green superpower in terms of wind power, solar power, hydroelectrics, and a space superpower as well, and in hypersonic intelligence weapons that can circumnavigate the globe, even though not on par with the United States, but at least with sufficient deterrence. And also have A2AD, anti-access area denial capabilities in the South China Sea. As for Taiwan, I think that China is not rushing into the war, but the perception in Beijing is that the United States seems to be pushing China towards the impossible. But of course, I think that Beijing is wise up to that challenge. And I talk about the rise of the global South. Africa is rising, and the East is also rising. The BRICS expanding the membership, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, China's deeply embedded in the RCEP, and the decoupling is not working, even though the term de-risking is not achieving much. And the rhetoric about democracy and autocracy, according to the Harvard Kennedy School, and also the Endowment Trust Barometer and the Paris-based Ipsos research, they all found that the Chinese people are amongst the people most supportive of the government and most trusted in the government. And these research papers come out only recently. And then there's no, according to the Chinese foreign minister, there is no Coca-Cola formula for democracy. Even though Western democracy may be the best political system, but no proof that it works for all nations and civilizations. And China's political system may not work for other nations, but clearly it has worked for China. And after all, democracy is a process, and the litmus test is the outcome. The outcome must be the livelihood of the people under whatever political system. So what's China's role in the interconnected world? Is also to address some of the challenges facing the world, including climate change, inequality, pandemics, sustainable development goals, and common prosperity, and then working with the other nations together, because there is and with the global institutions, which perhaps would need some reforming, and perhaps involving into a kind of concert of powers for the 21st century with all the international institutions. And then, of course, China recently launched two initiatives, the Global Development Initiative and the Global Security Initiative, both working together with other nations and not trying to adopt an hegemonic position. And of course, the human rights are important: democracy, world peace, cooperation, and common prosperity. This is my last slide. And there's a very famous, very popular saying, countries can be very, very different, but that doesn't need to translate into conflict. So the co-opetition, in other words, cooperation and competition without wars. It seems to be the answer. But of course, it's a tall order with the world fracture as it is. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.